Hello, I'm Martin Creaner, and I'd like to talk to you today about shaping the future of world broadband. I'd like to thank China Telecom for hosting this excellent event in order to launch the World Broadband Association to our wide industry in both China and right across the world. I'm the Director General of the newly formed World Broadband Association, and a little bit about me. In my past, I was the President and CEO of the TM Forum, which is the global industry body for telecom software management standards. I'm also an author, and I've written a range of books on the whole challenge of transforming the telco and how to work within a broader digital economy. The World Broadband Association has been formed to really focus on shaping the future of global broadband. Its main goal is to bring together all of the stakeholders and decision makers in the industry to really help us address what we see as the key industry challenges effectively. And industry challenges such as how do we address the inequality of broadband access across the world? Or how do we develop insightful regulation and policy for broadband in different parts of the world? We're also very focused on how do we ensure a sustainable service provider return on investment for the rollout of this next generation of broadband. And importantly, how do we enable vertical industry integration and help deliver end-to-end ecosystems and experience. We're also very focused on how do we build a future-proof network. And there are many fine organizations already working on different challenges in the fixed broadband industry. The ITU, of course, really addresses a lot of the policy challenges, and the technical standards are well addressed by organizations like ETSI and BBF and IETF, to name but a few. But really the focus of the World Broadband Association is on industry development and industry consensus on the key challenges of the business of broadband going forward. And when I talk about the stakeholders in the industry, I think of it in terms of a supply side and a demand side. The supply side of the industry drives an awful lot of the standardization discussions across all of the telco industry. And the supply side is really the people who build the networks, the network operators and so on, as well as the key equipment suppliers to those network operators. But the demand side is equally important in the broadband world. And the demand side is everything from, on the consumer end, the gaming and metaverse players, the vertical industry players in healthcare and manufacturing and multiple other vertical industry, as well as the people who are producing the key devices and even chips that will support this industry. And then more broadly, of course, the government is a key stakeholder in the future of broadband, as are the hyperscalers and the people who are developing the clouds that will carry a lot of the content, and of course the investment community, because broadband requires a lot of work on investment. The WBBA over the last number of months has been very active. It's been formed, it's been growing a number of key pieces of work in important areas to the membership. The 4 key white papers I'll talk about today are: one is around the importance of greater broadband investment across the world. One is about how do we really understand that next generation roadmap and how it's going to evolve. There's a piece of work that has been going on for a number of months on the whole area of the role of broadband in environmental sustainability. And of course, there's a lot. Broadband isn't starting today. It's been going for a long time. And what are some of those key success stories that we can all learn from? The white paper on greater broadband investment really was a broad look at the global argument for greater broadband investment and key things like the correlation between broadband investment and GDP growth, and the practical reality that countries without advanced broadband networks will eventually be left behind in the digital economy. As part of this piece of work, we carried out quite a comprehensive survey of 81 countries on the rollout of fibre to home, fibre to premises. And we saw that the coverage is approximately 40 to 45% coverage. And one of the conclusions of the white paper is that maybe 70% coverage is possible through private investment alone, but for 100% investment, it will require government intervention in some way. And that government intervention can help in areas like reducing regulatory barriers or creating greater flexibility in public-private partnership arrangements, or how we achieve copper switch off and so on. The white paper on generational roadmap was really trying to think of the future of broadband. We know where we are today, but what's coming down the road in 2, 3, 5, 7 years? And it was a holistic way of looking at the generations in terms of the capabilities, not just in terms of speed or just latency, but also areas like the sustainability aspects, the level of intelligence that's going to sit within the network, the security and reliability of the broadband networks of the future. And the generational roadmap took each one of these key characteristics and mapped out roughly where we are today in terms of speed, latency, etc., where we expect to be in the next version, which we called BB 5.5, and the next version, which would be BB6. And this roadmap is available to anyone to download, any member to download from the WBBA website. The white paper on broadband success stories recognises that we have a wide range of levels of advancement across the world, from some parts of the world that are already pushing the boundaries of capabilities to other parts of the world which are still getting started in the whole broadband journey. And so it contains a load of case studies, interesting success stories from some of the leading operators. China Telecom certainly contributed well into this, as did Chorus in New Zealand, Huawei from the supplier side, Nokia from the supplier side. So there's a range of really interesting case studies that you can download and look at to understand what you might want to emulate over the coming years. Environmental sustainability. The white paper we've developed on environmental sustainability recognised the point that the telco industry is playing a big role in the global sustainability discussion, both directly and indirectly. And it looks at the key areas of sustainability that can be addressed, particularly how efficient fibre is in terms of the energy, how energy hungry it is compared to other technologies. But it also looked at the Scope 1, Scope 2 and Scope 3 emissions that relate to the delivery of broadband. Again, a hugely important area. It's only going to get more and more important over the coming decade. Finally, I'd just like to talk very briefly about some of the upcoming work that the WBBA is focusing on. Certainly we need to keep going on some of the key areas, like refining that next generation roadmap. We've produced it to one level of detail, but there's already a demand from our members to understand that in a bit more detail. And so we will have to drill down and expand that out into more detail. We also have a working group which is now increasingly looking at the demand side of the requirements. The generational roadmap was really quite biased towards the supply side of the industry challenge, but the demand side of the industry challenge is equally important, and that is being now fleshed out by a new working group in this area. Broadband advocacy is going to become increasingly important. What's the economic and political rationale for accelerated broadband investment? I mentioned earlier that this is not a pure industry challenge. This is an industry holding hands with government challenge. And we need to understand what's the sweet spot for cooperation between the parties. The role of broadband in environmental sustainability, I just talked about a few moments ago, and that needs to be looked at in even more detail. What can operators practically do? What can all the ecosystem practically do to make broadband as environmentally sustainable as possible? And then finally, we have a new working group that's looking at the network technology evolution and really on what will that network topology look like to enable the new applications and scenarios of the future in a sustainable way. That's a brief overview of what the World Broadband Association has been doing over the last number of months, and moving forward into the future, we really would issue a call to you to join the WBBA and help us drive the future of the broadband industry, and join the industry leading companies like China Telecom, who have already got involved, rolled their sleeves up, and really helped push us over the first few months of this organisation. Thank you very much.